Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Sanchez Muñoz. I am volunteering at SALSA, and in this video I am going to talk about the problem of multilingualism in ancient studies. When trying to fight against the increasingly reduced presence of ancient studies in our modern society, we should have a look at the different features of ancient studies in order to look for the most problematic issues of them and try to offer one solution for these problems. In doing so, one of the problems, the most problematic problems of ancient studies might be the use of many modern languages for those studies. So let's say that modern languages are a problem of ancient studies. Modern languages in ancient studies? How is that? Yes, indeed, whether for reading secondary bibliography, writing an essay, an article, your thesis, attending to a seminar, or to a conference, whether as a speaker, whether as an attendee, besides of interacting with other attendees of that event, besides teaching to a community whose language is not your native language, or why not the fieldwork. Any person involved in ancient studies needs to learn a different number of modern languages, which are normally going to be those used in international scientific communication, that is English, French, German, besides less probably Italian, and another amount of language which are going to change depending on the region we are researching. So those engaged with pre-Columbian studies are going to study Spanish in order to read secondary bibliography and to interact with local communities, local people when doing fieldwork. Those engaged studying ancient East Asian studies are going to study Chinese, besides Japanese or Korean, and those engaged with studying the region, the cultures of the so-called Near East, the Southwest, Western Asia, are going to learn the other languages, such as Turkish for Egyptology, or Arabic for Egyptology or Assyriology, Arabic in its different language dialect. Multilingualism is, after all, a very ancient thing. Just think for a moment on the Bisotun inscription, a trilingual object written in three languages, the Elamite, the Old Persian, and the Babylonian, a dialect of Akkadian language, a Semitic language. However, while multilingualism still matters in our modern society, where we can move around the entire planet just with a couple of languages, for instance, English. Multilingualism in science and in ancient studies in particular enables the qualitarian access to a high quality science besides its production. It avoids the increasing impoverishment of trending languages in scientific communication by enriching the technical and vocabulary in general of other languages. And finally, multilingualism in science and in ancient studies keeps alive and strengthens research on local topics, which are going normally to be expressed on languages on the languages of the local communities, and not only in the internationally used scientific languages such as English, French, or German. People engaged with ancient studies are normally interested in very distant cultures. This is, for instance, an example of a Brazilian research laboratory on Egyptology. But students of ancient studies face two different problems when starting their career in ancient studies due to their high school background. The first one is that most of those students are not familiar with all the different languages used in international communication. Normally, they are going to learn two languages, which in a non-speaking English country, they are going to be English, besides another one, which will be different depending on the country we are talking about. So, putting the focus on the European Union, some countries are going to focus on French, while those on German. A second problem is related with the previous one, and it's the lack of a general linguistic background, because linguistic notions in high school rely very much on the native language of the students. So in a country whose language doesn't have declinations, for instance, Spanish or French, those lessons on linguistic notions are not going to focus very much on declinations, which, however, are very important for languages such as German, which has a lot of secondary bibliography to be read in ancient studies. At this point, the student of ancient studies has two options, or might consider both. One is avoiding the bibliography written in the unknown language, and trying to accomplish the due task with his her knowledge as much as he or she can. And the second one is to learning this unknown modern language. While the first option might be easy and unproblematic, avoiding a solution doesn't imply that the problem is automatically solved. But a student will have to learn to deal with that language in a certain moment, and without knowing that language, his or her results will be much worse, or the quality of her research will be much worse without knowing such a language. Learning a new language, which is the best advisable option in this case, has a lot of benefits, such as improving our memory, our capacity of multitasking, our mental agility, besides expanding our personality by confronting it with other views of the world and other cultures. In any case, the study of modern language has different problems. For instance, the question of time. Learning a new language depends very much on which is our native language and other languages we have previously learned. But normally, learning from scratch a new language to a more or less good level, let us say a B2 level, is going to take around 5 or 6 years or partial regular learning. That is more or less the time we need to earn a master's degree. The effort is indeed so comparable that if we earn a C1 level, let us say 1 or more or 2 years of additional study, we are going to be able to teach that language in a language center as language teachers, if we have already an university degree, whether related to modern languages or not. Another problem is the question of priorities. And I am not talking about the decision or the debate between, for instance, choosing a course on archaeoastronomy and a German course in order to be able to read better secondary bibliography in German about, in this case, ancient astronomy. I am talking about the necessity of choosing, of prioritizing different modern languages, especially when we are on abroad, and we need to deal with at the same time with different modern languages. Certainly, in many countries, university teaching is on English, is in English, but local people use another language, another language. So, we are not going to have a good level of English, but we should also have a good level on the language of the local community. And then that's not only a problem when immigrating, but some people has in his or her in their own countries that's a very problem. This is the case, for instance, of Palestine. Palestine is an occupied region by Israel, whose language is Hebrew, while Palestinian people has as native language Palestinian Arabic. Palestinian people normally need to go to Hebrew universities in order to have access to a good to a high qualified education. Besides their dialectal Arabic and modern standard Arabic for reading or other things, they need to learn Hebrew. So for Palestinian people, English, that is an important language in international communication, is a sort of third language. As a matter of comparison, for me as a Spanish native speaker, third language might be like German or Italian, because I have trained at high school in English and French. Another issue is the question of certificates when emigrating on abroad, for studying in other universities. This is not a mere luxury of extravagant students who want to earn, to have a very good, a very excellent education. But it is unfortunately the case of many students of Southwestern Asian countries who need to go to Europe or the United States in order to learn about the earliest stages of their own culture. And this is still an issue, despite the situation is increasingly getting better, as in this slide we can see an agreement between the German and the Iraqi universities for those students interested on learning the cultures of the ancient Southwestern Asia, and ancient Iraq, ancient Mesopotamia. When going to another university on abroad, universities are going to require us an internationally recognized degree, proving that we have already earned a certain level of proficiency in a certain language, so we are able to communicate, to interact in that language with a certain quality. It is true that universities normally give us an amount of options for such a certificate, but earning such a certificate is not always so easy to earn. In the case of again on ancient of Southwestern Asia, it is very striking that all those countries from the around the Gulf, the Persian Gulf, need to go to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates in order to take an exam of the Goethe Institute, which is because Dubai is, by the way, the German institution representing all those countries around the Gulf, the Persian Gulf, and probably we should also think about those other countries such as Iran, Saudi Arabia, or Iraq, which have German centers of the Goethe Institute, but the centers are very far from many local from many villages, so they will have to do a similar effort by traveling to another country in order to take an exam, which with the implicit cost, travel, accommodation, food cost, etc. Finally, there are another issues which are less important, but still they still have their importance. One of the most important one is the notion of some modern languages, especially those in international scientific communication. The association of those languages with imperial regimes, which have previously controlled the country where some people are living. But in any in that way, people and there is the notion that those languages are perceived as much more important that the local country, the local languages, which are increasingly have less representation in written and oral ways for making science. At this point, if we want to learn a new language for our ancient studies path, we have a couple, but at the same time dealing with these problems, we have a couple of solutions. Some are so-called short-term solutions, which pass for the use of automatic translators, such as Google Translate, which is probably very well known, but also other engines, which, by the way, are in many cases much better than Google Translate, such as Tip Language, Microsoft Translator, or Reverso. And the use of dictionaries, probably in order not only for looking at some specific words, but also for completing the information given by those automatic translators. And another group of solutions are the so-called long-term solutions, which pass by the action of studying a new language. Studying a new language can be done, as you probably know, with a teacher in online or on-site options, whether one-to-one lessons or with another group of students. But there are also free apps, engines, and other options for learning a modern language for free in our free time and to our own rhythm. Among them, there are Duolingo, Memrise, Linku, Busuu, Redlang, or Pod 101. I am, for instance, I am using Duolingo for learning modern standard Arabic, which is fun, by the way. It's an application which helps you to be persistent in your learning every day, which with a not so long time and in a very easy way on game with a high component of gamification. But should I have some comments for Arabic is a problem for the writing. Probably I should write a bit more Arabic as a complement for this extra training with Duolingo. And well, this is a common feature in general for individual learning style, the interaction with native speakers. But for the question of native speakers, should I have remember that there are multiple options, websites for finding people who wish to take part within a tandem, a language exchange, so we can talk with a native speaker of, let's say, German or French while trying and while those people are going to train with us another language they want to learn. And finally, some pieces of advice for learning modern languages. The first one is the perseverance. The faster does not make the better. Uh, One should learn little to little every day, than rather concentrating 3, 4, 6 hours just one day and forgetting the language for the rest of the week. The second piece of advice is to find an own learning style. There are multiple options of learning style. Some of them focused on listening, some of the others focused on grammar, on images, interaction, self-study, so on. It is a question to find the best option, the option which suits the best for us, and look for them and a teacher or method for focused on that learning style, and our options for learning our desired language will be much better. There is option to make some linguistic immersions. But it is a very common myth that in linguistic immersions are very good for learning a language, even from scratch. The reality is that one should have at least some notions of the foreign language of the country before traveling to it, and get the language come to us, because one needs to have the enough knowledge in order to recognize what people are saying. And finally, and regarding the compatibility of learning languages with our academic training at education at universities, there is always the option to exchange a language course for elective course within 1 degree, especially when those elective courses are not of our interest. It is just option to talk with the respective university staff and make the pertinent arrangements. With that, with those words, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoy your experience with learning modern languages.